So let us resume our study of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 3, the marriage of Sukanyā and Cyavana Muni. Let us begin with Mangalacharana. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vagishai Krishna Danyamadan Takshanamapi Namasreshtam Manumapi Sachiputramatra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Rupurim Mathurim Goshtavati Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Kri Guruntam Natosmi Krishna Danyamadan Takshanamapi Swapnepi Vishveshware Tasmin Bhakti Mahaitukim Vidadhato Hrittaya Vagdi Sada Shrilan Sadguna Punjakeli Nilayan Premavataranaham Vande Bhagavatani Mananudavam Murnani Patyakshitau Ajanulambita Bhujau Kanakavadhatau Sankirtanaika Pitarau Kamalayatakshav Vishwambharau Dvijabarau Yugadharma Palau Vande Jagat Priyakarau Karunavatarau Jayatam Suratau Pango Mama Mandamatirkati Matsarvasvapadam Vochau Radha Madana Mohanau Neela Chalanivasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam Jagannathaya Te Namaha Padau Yadiyau Prathama Dvitiyau Tritiya Turiyau Katitau Yaduro Nabhistada Panchamaeva Shashto Bhujantaram Dor Yugalam Tathanyau Kanthasturajan Navamo Yadiyo Mukharavindam Dashamam Prafullam Ekadasho Yasya Lalatapatam Shiro Pitudvadashaye Babati Tamadidevam Karunanidhanam Tamalavarnam Suhitavataram Apara Samsara Samudra Setum Vajamahe Bhagavata Swarupam Vajamahe Bhagavata Swarupam Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhavya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinatarina. Hare Krishna. So let us briefly review what we have discussed yesterday. So basically in 9th canto, we are going to discuss about these two dynasties, the Sun dynasty, the Surya Vamsha, and the Moon dynasty, Chandra Vamsha. And the descendants of Sun dynasty and the Moon dynasty, and we are going to discuss pastimes of the Lord with various devotees in these dynasties. And why we are discussing about these dynasties, these two dynasties are being discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam because the Supreme Lord personally appeared in these two dynasties. He appeared as Sri Ramachandra in the Sun dynasty and the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna in the Moon dynasty. Okay, so yesterday we had begun the discussion of King Saryati, another son of Manu, and how king and his daughter Sukanyā, how they went to the forest to see the ashram of Cyavana Muni, and how, Cyavana Muni happened to be in the hole of an earthworm, and, by the dint of his mystic power, and he appeared like two glowing luminaries, and how Sukanyā actually pierced those glowworms with a thorn, and how the blood began to ooze out of those glowworms. And then, after doing this act, how all the soldiers of Saryati were immediately obstructed from passing urine and stool, and how Saryati was actually very concerned. He was very concerned and he was very introspective. He felt that one of them had done some wrong to Cyavana Muni, and after which Sukanyā admits to her father that she has done something wrong. And then King Saryati was very much afraid, and he tried to appease Cyavana Muni, and Cyavana Muni, it is said that, he asked Saryati whether Sukanyā was already married. So Saryati understood Cyavana Muni's purpose, and he gave his daughter Sukanyā in charity to the sage. So a very important aspect which we all discussed was Cyavana Muni was a very, very old man, and he was a very irritable man. But still, Sukanyā served him so nicely, with so much of respect, understanding her husband's temperament. So therefore, we have seen yesterday how should a wife deal with her husband, how an ideal wife should deal with her husband. Okay, she should actually understand the temperament of her husband. Sukanyā, she could understand Cyavana Muni's temperament, she could understand Cyavana Muni's attitude, and she treated him accordingly. She did not become equally irritable like her husband. So therefore, the married life was very, very smooth. And we also discussed, if any wife wants to be happy with her husband, she must try to understand her husband's temperament and please him. So this is the standard given in Srimad Bhagavatam. The topmost Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, says how a wife should actually deal with a husband. A wife must always deal with a husband, understanding his temperament, understanding that the husband, because he is in a male body, both are souls, and the goal of marriage is that both the husband and wife should actually come from the bodily consciousness to the spiritual consciousness, and they should assist each other in coming to the spiritual consciousness. But again, one must also understand that it takes time. So therefore, the husband has to deal accordingly with the wife, and particularly here it is told how a wife must deal with her husband. A husband always wants to be in a superior position. So therefore, a wife should always understand this temperament of the husband, and she should deal with the husband accordingly. Otherwise, in fact, this is called a victory for a woman. Not that the woman also becomes angry and the complete family is in a chaos. A man always wants to be superior. That's very natural, because the soul which is having a male body always wants to be superior. And the soul which is having a female body always wants to serve. So that is why you see, even very young girls, when they see small babies, they very, it is very natural for them to take the baby and be very affectionate to the baby, to serve the baby. This is the natural, position of a woman. This is natural position of a soul which has the body of a woman. And we had seen, however great a woman may be, she must be ready to carry out her husband's orders and please him in all circumstances. Only then her life will be successful. And when the wife becomes as irritable as the husband, the life at home is sure to be disturbed or ultimately completely broken. And we have also discussed, in the modern day, the wife is never submissive to the husband. And we had discussed many things related to this yesterday. And therefore, the home life is broken even by slight incidents. This is because the women as well as the man, both of them are not trained properly. Not only the female, the male is also not trained properly. So when two untrained people enter into marriage, the expectations are unrealistic. And when expectations are unrealistic, it leads to problem. So we have also seen and discussed whether Shastras recommend divorce and we have discussed that Shastras strictly do not recommend divorce. In fact, there is no word for divorce in Vedic literature. There is no divorce law, and a woman must be trained to always be submissive to the will of her husband. Yesterday we discussed many practical things also, and Westerners consider this as a slave mentality for the wife, but actually it is not. If a woman is submissive to her husband, even if her husband may be rude, she is actually doing her part of her syllabus. And of course, if the situation is very difficult, she can always take help of her relatives. That also we had discussed yesterday. And in fact, to be submissive to the will of the husband is a tactic of the woman by which she can conquer the heart of the husband. So a man who has irritable temperament, if his wife is very good to him, understands him and serves him properly, ultimately she is doing her syllabus very well. And when she is doing her part of her syllabus very well, then she is pleasing the Supreme Lord. And when the Supreme Lord is pleased, the Supreme Lord is present even in the husband's heart as Paramatma. So he also inspires the husband to actually transform. So this is what happened in this case also. Cyavana Muni was old enough to be Sukanya's grandfather, and he was also very irritable. Just imagine, he is a very, very old man and very irritable man. He was of the age of Sukanya's grandfather. And Sukanya was a beautiful girl. She was the daughter of a king. But still, she submitted herself to her old husband because she understood that it is the will of providence. It is the will of the Supreme Lord that I have got this person as my husband for this lifetime. So I have to do my part of duty very nicely and serve him very nicely. So that is how Sukanya was always a very faithful and chaste wife. And then we have also seen how Cyavana Muni once happened to meet Ashwini Kumara brothers, and how Cyavana Muni requested them to give him youthful life, and he also promised Somarasa in return. And we have seen that in every department of material science, there is a perfection to be achieved, and to achieve it, one must consult the Vedic literature, and of course, the highest perfection is to become a devotee of the Supreme Lord. And to attain this perfection, one must consult Srimad Bhagavatam. And then we have also seen that the Ashwini Kumaras told Cyavana Muni to go and take a dip in a lake. In fact, they helped him also. And after that, what happened? He could regain he could get a very young body. And Sukanya, she could not distinguish her husband from the two Ashwini Kumaras. And then she took shelter of the Ashwini Kumaras and to inform her who her actual husband was. So this is another mark of chastity. She could have selected any one of them as her husband, but she could not distinguish among them. So therefore, she took shelter of Ashwini Kumaras and she asked them to inform her who her actual husband was. Okay, let us begin. Let us resume from here. Darshayitva patim tasyai patipratyena toshito rishim amantriyaya yatur vimanena trivishtapam. The Ashwini Kumaras were very pleased to see Sukanya's chastity and faithfulness. Thus, they showered her, Cyavana Muni, her husband, and thus they showed her, Cyavana Muni, her husband, and after taking permission from him, they returned to the heavenly planet in their plane. Yakshyamano tasaryati Cyavanashyashramam gataha dadarsha duhitus parshve purusham surya varchasam. Thereafter, King Saryati, desiring to perform a sacrifice, went to the residence of Cyavana Muni. There he saw by the side of his daughter a very beautiful young man, as bright as the sun. Now Cyavana Muni wanted to perform some sacrifice. King Saryati wanted to perform some sacrifice. So therefore, he went to Cyavana Muni's ashram. And there he is able to see his daughter, and he is also able to see a very beautiful young man. Now let us see what King Saryati says. Raja duhitaram praha kritapada bhivandanam ashishashchapra yunjano nati priti mana iva. After receiving obeisances from his daughter, the king, instead of offering blessings to her, appeared very displeased and spoke as follows. You see, the king is seeing his daughter, and the king is also seeing a young man standing beside his daughter. And he appeared very displeased, although his daughter offered obeisances. And what did the king speak? Let us see. Chikirshhitam te kimidam patistvaya pralambhito lokanamaskruto muni yatvam jaragrashtamasatya sammatam vihaya jaram bhajase mumadvagam. He says, the father is actually chastising the daughter. He is very angry. He is saying, "Oh, unchaste girl, what is this that you have desired to do? You have cheated the most respectable husband who is honored by everyone. For I see that because he was old, diseased, and therefore unattractive, you have left his company to accept your husband, this young man who appears to be a beggar from the street." See, it was actually Cyavana Muni only. Cyavana Muni got transformed. He regained his youth due to Ashwini Kumaras. And the same Cyavana Muni is actually transformed. He has become a very young man and a very good looking man. And he is beside Sukanyā, his wife. But the king Saryati, is unable to understand this. So he feels that his daughter has left her husband and then is living with another man in a very illegitimate way. And she has accepted another man as her husband, which is actually extremely sinful. When you have a husband, accepting another husband is extremely sinful as per Shastras. So that is what we have been discussing yesterday also. There is no concept of divorce in Vedic literature. Once a marriage has happened, it has happened, that's all. Now here also we see, she is already married to Cyavana Muni and he is seeing that she is with a very young man. So the king does not know what has happened to Cyavana Muni. The king does not know that it was Cyavana Muni who actually got transformed into a young beautiful man. So therefore he is saying, you have left his company to accept as your husband this young man who appears to be a beggar from the street. See, that means the king is actually, although Cyavana Muni was very old, he was very irritable. The king had to give Sukanyā in marriage to Cyavana Muni due to certain situations, due to certain circumstances. But still, Cyavana Muni was old, he was very irritable, but he was a great sage actually. He was a great sage. So the king is actually telling like this, you have cheated the most respectable husband. Pralambhito loka namaskrito muni. He is actually addressing Cyavana Muni as Pralambhito loka namaskrito muni. That means the entire world is actually, he's a very, very respectable person. See, although Cyavana Muni is not very good looking externally, because he is a very great sage, a very respectable man. So therefore, King Saryati is actually addressing Cyavana Muni as a very respectable man, although he is not good looking. And also this man who is with, this man means he is actually Cyavana Muni only. But, the same Cyavana Muni, when he got a young body, because the king does not know that it is Cyavana Muni only. So he is now saying that, and you have accepted this young man who appears to be a beggar from the street. So the king here, if we see very clearly, he is giving importance to qualities, not to the external looks. This is a very important lesson for us, for all of us to learn. So in Vedic system, importance was given only to the qualities. Elevated personalities always give importance to the qualities. But if you see, as the Kali Yuga is progressing, importance is given only to the externals. What does one consider when giving a daughter in marriage to another boy? They see how much he is earning, whether he has a US visa or not, whether he is good looking or not, what is his bank balance. And nowadays, many Girls also insist under the influence of parents who are unfortunately guiding them in a very wrong way. They also say, they also put so many conditions. You should have a US visa, or you should have this much bank balance. This should be your salary, or your parents should not stay with you after marriage. We should stay separately. All these things they put. We have to go back. We have to, as soon as the flights open, as soon as the situation of COVID becomes okay, we should go to America so that we don't have disturbance from your in-laws, from my in-laws, from your parents. So the basis of marriage has become externals. The external bodily considerations are given more importance. The money is given more importance. But in Vedic system, the qualities are given importance. In fact, while considering for marriage, one must choose a qualified boy or a qualified girl. Not simply because the boy is earning a lot, or not simply because the girl is very beautiful to look at. The qualities must be given importance. Here, although it is the same Cyavana Muni, the king does not know that it is the same Cyavana Muni. So he is thinking that, his daughter, in a very unchaste way, although she has her husband, she has taken shelter of some other person. So he is saying, you have cheated the most respectable husband. So he is giving so much respect to Cyavana Muni, although externally Cyavana Muni does not look very attractive. And although externally this young man is looking very attractive, he is actually considering him to be a beggar from the street, because he feels that he is staying with a woman who is already married. But again, he does not know that he is the same man as Cyavana Muni. He is the same Cyavana Muni only. So this is the importance of chastity in Vedic culture. According to the circumstances, Sukanyā had been given a husband who was too old to be compatible with her. But, and because Cyavana Muni was diseased and very old, definitely he was not fit for the beautiful daughter of King Saryati, but still King Saryati and Sukanyā both understood that it is the will of providence that this marriage has happened. So this is Vedic culture. See, although they were materially very, very opulent, still they accepted whatever is the will of providence. They accepted that this is the will of providence. It is ultimately the supreme will of the Lord. It's the will of the supreme Lord that I have got him as my husband. They did not, feel bad. It is not that, Sukanyā got married to Cyavana Muni and Sukanyā was always calling her father on her mobile phone and saying, what have you done, father? To what kind of person you have married me to? Shouldn't you have thought? Don't you have common sense? She never said like this. What did she say? She, in fact, served Cyavana Muni very, very faithfully, very, very sincerely, with full heart, understanding that it is the will of the Lord that this marriage has happened, and this is the person whom Lord has given me for this life. So let me serve this person nicely, because it is my duty. And she was so meticulous in doing her duty as a wife. And therefore the Supreme Lord is pleased. So therefore everybody was actually acknowledging the supreme will of the Lord, the supreme will of providence. And they were conducting themselves as per the will of the Lord. They were conducting themselves in order to please the Lord. Therefore they were following the Varnashrama Dharma very nicely. Just imagine, she's a young girl, and the two, a king's daughter, beautiful girl, and Cyavana Muni, such an old man. But still you see how qualified was Sukanyā, how chaste she was, that she accepted this as the will of providence. And she understood that it is Krishna's plan, and she submitted to that plan. And it is not that, okay, it's my karma. She didn't do like that. She accepted and she served her husband very, very nicely. So definitely he was unfit to be her husband, but still her father expected her to be faithful to her husband. This is Vedic culture. Definitely he was unfit. By material standards, he was unfit. But still, because the marriage has taken place, the father expected the daughter to be very faithful. Just see how the modern fathers are. The moment there is a small, tussle between husband and wife, they say, they, unreasonably, they instigate the daughter, don't stay with that man. You come here. You stay here. Don't stay with that man. Go for a divorce. But what was his expectation? He expected that his daughter served her husband very faithfully. Just see what is the difference. Where are we right now? So when he suddenly saw that his daughter has accepted someone else, he immediately chastised her because he felt that she has become unchaste because she has accepted another man in presence of her husband. So this is Vedic culture. Even if a young woman is given to an old husband, she must respectfully serve him. This is chastity. And it is not that because she dislikes her husband, she can give him up and accept another. This is against Vedic culture and extremely sinful. Katam matiste vagatanyata satam kula prasute kula doshanam tvidam vivarshijaram yadapat trapakulam vituscha bhartuscha nayasya dashtamaha. Oh, my daughter, who were born in a respectable family, how have you degraded your consciousness in this way? How is it that you are shamelessly maintaining a paramar? You will thus degrade the dynasties of both your father and your husband to hellish life. See how he is chastising. He is saying that you are shameless. How come you become so degraded? And by your action, my family, that is the family in which you were born, and Cyavana Muni's family, both of them are going to degrade. So this is the consequence. What are the consequences of violation of chastity? According to Vedic culture, a woman who accepts a paramar, that means paramar means a lover, or a second husband in presence of the husband she has married, is certainly responsible for degradation of her father's family and the family of her husband. So therefore, a married woman should never accept a paramar or a second husband in the presence of the husband she has already married. And what does it lead to? It leads to degradation of her father's and family of her husband also. And the rules of Vedic culture in this regard are strictly observed in the respectable families of Brahmana, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas even today. For a woman of the Brahmana, Kshatriya or Vaishya to accept another husband in the presence of the husband she has married, or to file for divorce or accept a boyfriend or paramar is unacceptable. It is simply unacceptable in Vedic culture. So this divorce concept is totally, condemned. Evam bruvanam pitaram smayamana shuchismita vachatata janma jamata tavaisha bhrugunandana. So Sukanyā, being very proud of her chastity, smiled upon hearing the rebukes of her father. She actually smiled because the young man is none other than Cyavana Muni only, who regained his youth. Okay. However, being very proud of her chastity, smiled upon hearing the rebukes of her father. She smilingly told him, "My dear father, this man by my side is your actual son-in-law, the great sage Cyavana, who was born in the family of Prabhu. Sasamshapitre tatsarvam vayo rupa vilambhanam vishmita paramapritas tanayam parisasvaje." Thus Sukanyā explained how her husband had received the beautiful body of a young man. When the king heard this, he was very surprised, and in great pleasure he embraced his beloved daughter. Somena yajayan viram graham somasya chagrahit asomapura yashvinos chavanasvena tejasa. Cyavana Muni, by his own prowess, enabled King Saryati to perform the Soma Yajna, and the Muni offered a full pot of Somarasa to the Ashwini Kumaras, although they were unfit to drink it. Hantum tam adade vajram sadyo manyut amarsitaha savajram stambhayamasa bhujam indrasya bhargavaha. King Indra became angry and he wanted to kill Cyavana Muni, and therefore he impetuously took up his thunderbolt. But Cyavana Muni, by his powers, paralyzed Indra's arm that held the thunderbolt, because Indra was angry that Ashwini Kumaras had drunk the Somarasa. Anvajanam statas sarve graham somasya chashvino visajaviti yat purvam soma hutya bahiskritau. Although the Ashwini Kumaras were only physicians and were therefore excluded from drinking Somarasa in sacrifices, the demigods agreed to allow them henceforward to drink it. Uttana barhiranarto Bhurishena ititraya Saryatera bhavan putra anarta drevato bhavat. So King Saryati, now he begot three sons. What are the names of the three sons? Uttana Barhi, Anarta and Bhurisena. And from Anarta came a son named Revata. Sonta Samutre Nagarim Vinirmaya Kushasthalim Astito Bhunta Vishayan Anartadin Arindama Tasya Putra Satam Jajne Kakudmi Jeshta Muttamam. Oh Maharaj Parikshit, subduer of enemies, this Revata constructed a kingdom. Who is Revata? Revata is the son of Anarta. Okay? So he is the grandson of Saryati. Revata is the grandson of Saryati. Oh Maharaj Parikshit, this Revata constructed a kingdom known as Kushasthali in the depths of the ocean. There he lived and ruled tracts of land as Anarta, etc. He had 100 very nice sons, of whom the eldest was Kakudmi. Kakudmi Revatim Kanyam Swam Adaya Vibhungataha Putriya Varam Pariprashtam Brahmalokam Apavritam. Taking his own daughter Revati, Kakudmi. So Revati was the daughter of Kakudmi. Kakudmi went to Lord Brahma in Brahmaloka, which is transcendental to three modes of material nature, and inquired about a husband for her. So he wanted to get her married as a father. So he went to Lord Brahma in Brahmaloka. Avartamane Gandharve Stito Labdakshanakshanam Tadanta Adyam Anamya Swaviprayam Nyavedavayat. When Kakudmi arrived there, Lord Brahma was engaged in hearing musical performances by the Gandharvas and had not a moment to talk with him. Therefore, Kakudmi waited, and at the end of the musical performances, he offered his obeisances to Lord Brahma and thus submitted his long-standing desire. Now you see, Saryati's sons, three of them were there, and one of them was Anartha, Anartha's son, Revata, Revata's son, Kakudmi, and Kakudmi's daughter, Revati. So they are all from the Sun dynasty. Basically, Saryati was a son of the Vaivashvata Manu. So they are all from the Sun dynasty. So now Kakudmi waited, and at the end of the musical performances, he offered his obeisances to Brahma. Now Kakudmi goes to Brahma because he wants to search a suitable boy for Revati. So he goes to Brahma, but Brahma is very much occupied in hearing musical performances and did not have time to speak to him. So Kakudmi had to wait until the musical performance got over. And then he offers his obeisances to Brahma and he submits his long-standing desire. And what happens now? Tachrutva Bhagavan Brahma Prahasyatam Uvachaha Aho Rajan Niruddhaste Kale Nahridiye Krita. After hearing his words, Lord Brahma, who is most powerful, laughed loudly and said to Kakudmi, O king, all those whom you may have decided in the core of your heart to accept as your son-in-law have passed away in due course of time, because in Brahmaloka, what is Brahmaloka's time and Bhuloka's time? It is very, very different, right? So he says, all of those whom you may have decided within the core of your heart, all of them have anyway passed away, because so much of time has passed away. 27 Chaturyugas have already passed. Tat putra pautro na trinam gotrani cha sasrinmahe kalo diyatas trinava chaturyuga vikalpita. Trinava means 9 into 3. 27 Chaturyugas have already passed by the time the musical performance is over, by the time you actually asked me. So those upon you whom you may have decided now are gone, and their grandsons, their great-grandsons, and all other descendants are also gone. You cannot even hear about their names. So powerful is the influence of time. So he says, everyone has gone, whomever you have decided to actually in your heart to give your daughter to in marriage, all of them are now gone. So during Lord Brahma's day, 14 Manus or 1000 Mahayugas pass away. And Brahma informed King Kakudmi that now 27 Mahayugas, each consisting of 4 periods of Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali have already passed. And all the kings and other great personalities born on these yugas have now departed into complete obscurity. So this is the way of time. But then Brahma says, Tadgacha Deva Devamsho Baladevo Mahabalaha Kanyaratnam Idam Rajan Nararatnaya Dehibo. He said, O king, live here and offer your daughter to Lord Baladeva, who is still present. Who is Baladeva? Baladeva is none other than Balramji, who is still present. He is most powerful. Indeed, he is the supreme personality of Godhead, whose plenary portion is Lord Vishnu. Your daughter is fit to be given to him in charity. So, Baladeva comes in the Moon dynasty. So, he is the supreme personality of Godhead, whose plenary portion is Lord Vishnu. So, your daughter is fit to be given to him in charity. Bhuvo Bharavataraya Bhagavan Bhuta Bhavanaha Avatirno Nijamshena Punyashravana Kirtanaha. Lord Baladev is the supreme personality of Godhead. One who hears and chants about him is purified. Because he is always the well-wisher of all living entities, he has descended with all his paraphernalia to purify the entire world and lessen its burden. Ityadishto bhivandyajam nripasvat agataha yaktam punya janatrasad vratrabhir dekshvavastitaihi. Having received this order from Lord Brahma, Kakudmi offered obeisances unto him and returned to his own residence. Then he saw that his residence was vacant, having been abandoned by his brothers and other relatives who were living in all directions because of fear of such higher living beings as the Yakshas. Sutam Dattva Navatyagnim Balaya Balasaline Badaryakyam Gato Raja Taptam Narayanashramam. Thereafter, the king gave his most beautiful daughter in charity to the supremely powerful Baladeva, and then retired from worldly life and went to Badrikashram to place Naranarayana. So we have come to an end of this chapter. It is 6:20. If there are any questions, we can take, and we can begin the next chapter tomorrow.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, this word given, the daughter is given in charity. Revati and the before of Sarati, both of them given in charity. They didn't use the word the marriage. What is the meaning, difference of these two words? Charity and marriage. What does they mean to say the charity there?
Very beautiful question, Prabhu. Thank you for the question. See, who are the, when you see Saryati and when you see Kakudmi, to whom they were to give their daughter? Kakudmi was to give the daughter to the Supreme Personality of Godhead only, right? And Saryati was supposed to give, he was to give the daughter to Cyavana Muni. Now, these personalities are very great personalities. So, always it is, So, always it is said that a woman should be given as a charity, particularly when the personalities are very highly elevated personalities. Even otherwise, it is always told, Kanya Dan, right?
Okay.
We say Kanya Danam, right? When we give our daughter in marriage. Danam means what?
Danam is charity only, correct.
Yeah. Why is it charity? You know why it is called charity? I will tell you. Of course, in this context, it is because these two were very great personalities. And even otherwise, a father should give a daughter with a very grateful heart to the boy to whom he is going to give. Understanding that this boy is going to take care of my daughter on behalf of the Supreme Lord. So that is why you see, when you get your daughter married, or when anyone gets their daughter married, why do you wash the feet of the husband before you give your daughter in marriage? In the marriage ceremony, that is done, right? Because a son-in-law is treated very, very respectfully, because he is going to take responsibility of the daughter. Whosever responsibility you have been taking, now from now on, another person is going to take that responsibility. Just like you have taken your responsibility until the girl is, say, 20 years or 22 years or whatever it may be. You have been taking responsibility of your daughter on behalf of the Lord. And now some other man is going to take responsibility of your daughter on behalf of the Lord. So that person is supposed to be treated in a very, very respectful way. That is why you say Danam. Now, what is that person going to do? See, when you give daughter in a marriage as a Kanya Dan with a lot of respect, what is that person actually supposed to do? That person is supposed to take assistance from your daughter in pursuing towards the actual goal of life. That person is supposed to take help of your daughter to actually perform certain duties. Your wife is going to be an assistant to that person. So you are actually giving your daughter as a Danam so that she can be of assistance to this very elevated person in performing his duties. Wife is called Ardhangini, right? When you give your daughter in marriage, what is supposed to be the actual meaning of marriage? The actual meaning of marriage is that the husband and wife together, by performing their, by sticking to their respective syllabus, the husband and wife together are supposed to serve the Supreme Lord by performing duties as per Varnashrama. So the wife or the girl is going to actually be a very important person in the boy's life. That is, she is going to be an immediate assistant to help the husband perform various duties, and thereby both of them are going to get benefited. But the primary role of the daughter is to assist the husband, and the primary role of the husband is to carry on his duties very nicely and by following Sadhu, Guru and Shastra. So therefore you tell it as a gift. Charity means gift, Kanya Danam.
Okay. Sorry, one more thing. Why the dowry system has come now? See, as per the Vedic, it is charity. So when something is done charity, there is no question of dowry at all. So how did this came? It is by the material world?
Yes. Very good question.
So it's not there in Vedas, the dowry, right?
Yes. See, generally, why this dowry system came, I will tell you. In the Vedic system, particularly when daughters of higher castes were married off, like Vaishyas and Kshatriyas, along with the girl, they used to give many gifts. so that
That's a different thing.
girl can be very happy and peaceful. Along with the girl, they used to give many ornaments and many gifts. And even in the case of Kshatriyas, the daughter used to be given many maid servants also to go along with her and stay in her husband's place. So this culture is there. Along with the girl, some gift should be given. But again, one very important thing in this is that a gift should be given as per the person's status. A gift should not be demanded.
Right.
The gift, it should not be demanded, right? So nowadays, what is happening? They put a list. They put a list. I want this. I want this. I want this. I want this. Gift should be given. It is a culture to actually give dowry. But again, it should be given.
But that is not dowry actually. That's a gift. That's a gift given with to the daughter so that she can be happy if required. But that's that's the reason in the previous, I think Sarati also somewhere he mentioned that it is given charity is free. Free word was used somewhere, I think, in some of the sloka, I forgot. Sarati used the word, the daughter is given as free in charity. Free word was used there.
Exactly.
So that means that he may not have given any gifts, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. See, actually what is meant by, see, when we see in third canto, Swayambhu Manu also gave his daughter in charity to Kardama Muni. So basically, when a father marries off his daughter, it is his duty to give some gift. But again, let me tell you, when the boy's side is demanding many things, that is wrong. To give gift is a culture. It is Vedic culture that something should be given to the girl when she is being married. Okay, but that should be a gift only, and it should be given happily from the girl's parents in order that the couple can remain happy. But nowadays what has happened is the boy's family have started exploiting the girl's family, and they are demanding so many things. That is not correct. To give gift, to give some land or some property or something, whatever is in their, see, as per their status, is actually culture. It is a part of the culture. Actually, this dowry is a part of the culture. But nowadays it has become very, generally this dowry is used in a very negative sense because people have polluted the very meaning of dowry. It has become a demand. And you see, people are resorting to domestic violence also because they don't get whatever they have expected. They end up in beating the wives and, so many things happen. So this is not, dowry actually. Dowry is not demanded. Dowry is something which actually the father of the daughter is supposed to give to the daughter at the time of her marriage as per his status. But it is not something which has to be demanded from the boy's side. Is it clear, Prabhu?
Correct. One more doubt, Prabhuji.
The moment it is demanded, it will actually make everything very, very bitter. Whatever is given should be given as per the girl's parents' status, and it should be taken happily by the boys. It is not that, after marriage also you are keeping on demanding. That is not correct. That is why dowry has become a very bad word. Actually, dowry is a very, it's an integral part of Vedic culture. As per Vedic system, it is not wrong. But today it has been misused. Just like many things have become, many things are being misused now. What about marriage? What is even marriage has become a contract, right? If I am not able to satisfy your senses, and if you are not,
it's a family business nowadays.
People don't know the meaning of marriage also, right? Marriage is a very great responsibility. Marriage is a big sacrifice. It is a very great responsibility, and people, because they are not trained properly in understanding what is culture and what is the ultimate goal of life, because they are not trained in all these things, what happens is they take everything for granted. They don't know what is the meaning of marriage. They only know, if I'm married, I can enjoy with my wife. And wife thinks, I can enjoy nicely with my husband's money and we will have fun together. That's all. Marriage is not that.
Correct.
Marriage is a very deep responsibility. It's a very, very deep responsibility. and you take very very important vows during marriage. Marriage is a samskara, right? Marriage is a purificatory process. It's a samskara. It is a very important responsibility on behalf of the boy and the girl to actually march towards the ultimate goal of life, to actually maintain the culture, to maintain family tradition. And most importantly, shall I tell you, what is the purpose of marriage? The purpose of marriage is that you should let go your ego. See, if you are not letting go your ego, then that is where your actual devotion starts, right? So one let go one's ego. That is the actual purpose of marriage. But marriage, what to speak of dowry, even marriage has become just a contract. It is like, you please my senses, I please your senses. The moment you are not pleasing my senses and I am not able to please your senses, we will go for divorce. The moment I am not satisfied, how many cases are there if you go and see in the family court, and the main reason is, they are not satisfied in whatever way. The moment the husband is not satisfied with the wife, the moment the wife is not satisfied with the husband, immediate divorce. So they don't understand. They don't understand the purpose of marriage. They don't understand gravity of marriage. What to speak of dowry? They are not even understanding purpose of marriage.
Correct. Prabhuji, when there is no divorce in Vedic culture,
yes,
how would they are doing second marriage by the Brahmanas in the society? With the same traditions, how it is happening?
That's a very good question. And in fact, one more Mataji also has asked this question in the chat. Sai Lahari Mataji, why is it that men are allowed to marry 2 times but not women? It's a very good question. See, in Vedic system, polygamy was allowed. But when was it allowed? In the Vedic system, polygamy was allowed not for everybody. Polygamy was allowed for Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas also. See, the kings could have many wives actually. The kings could have, and if you see also, the kings generally had so many wives. If you see even in Srimad Bhagavatam, King Chitraketu was having many wives, right? But the woman will always have only one husband. This is Vedic system. Of course, there is an exception in Mahabharata, okay, where Draupadi was shared, but that is only an exception. We are not going to discuss the details of that exception now, but it is a very rare exception. But generally, a man is allowed to marry more than one wife in Vedic system. You know why that is? See, some reasons are like this. Previously, it was allowed, but it was not allowed for everybody. It was allowed only for Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. Brahmanas could maximum have one more wife. Maybe they can have 2 wives, that's all. Not more than that. Kshatriyas could have any number of wives because they could maintain them. It is not that you just marry, right? You should be even able to maintain them. The Kshatriyas, it is not that, you just marry and, use them for whatever, bodily sense gratification and leave them. It is not that. They used to take care of them very nicely. They used to maintain them in the royal household. So much of money and so much of facilities were there for the Kshatriyas. And Vaishyas also were generally very opulent. That's why they could actually maintain more than one wife. But Kshatriyas could have many wives. Brahmanas generally had only maybe 1 or 2 wives. That's all, maximum 2. And Vaishyas also maximum they had maybe 2 wives. That's all. But that was allowed in Vedic system because people were qualified and they could actually give shelter materially and spiritually to many females. And another reason was because in the Vedic system, not all the men used to get married. Many of them used to take sannyas also. They were brahmacharis, and there was a significant number of males who took to renounce the order of life. But for females, renunciation is not recommended. So always there are more number of females than males in the society, right? So for that reason, males were allowed to have more than one wife. So these are the 2 reasons. One is one should be able to maintain them also. It is not that you simply marry and use them and leave them like that. One should also be actually able to maintain the wife, and they should be able to meet all the material needs of the wife, material and spiritual. And only very opulent people, both materially and spiritually little advanced people, were allowed to do that. But coming to Kali Yuga, everybody is a Shudra. So that is not allowed in Kali Yuga. That is not allowed in the present day. Maintaining one wife itself is so difficult. Is it not, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Maintaining, we are not even able to maintain one wife properly. Even one wife has so many complaints about us. So it is neither permitted by the law of the land, nor it is permitted in Kali Yuga, because in Kali Yuga, most of us are, belong to the Shudra category only. There are no proper Brahmanas, there are no proper Kshatriyas, there are no proper Vaishyas. So therefore, Kalau Sudra Sambhavat. So therefore, you are allowed to have only one wife. Actually, in Vedic system, allowed you to have more than one wife.
That's okay, Prabhuji. But there is no divorce, right?
No divorce. Absolutely no divorce.
Then why second marriage is happening nowadays? That's what my question is.
Second marriage is happening.
That's also done in a Shastric way. There is no divorce in Vedic system, but the girl is getting married second time or third time in a Shastric way.
No. Can you
in
come
the
again?
Temples
I
or in the...
understand your question properly.
So there is no divorce in the Vedic system.
Okay.
And the girl is married second time or third time in a Shastric way.
When?
In the temple or in this thing by the Brahmanas.
In the Vedic system?
They are getting married the second time. Hello?
Can you give some example?
Can you hear? No, suppose one girl is divorced and she gets married to some other person again.
Okay.
By the same mantras and all, na? She gets married again second time also. Then how that is happening when it is not there in Vedas?
It is wrong, Prabhu. Divorce concept is wrong. It is completely wrong. You are asking, see,
then why the Brahmanas are marrying them? Why they are marrying them second time?
Raghavendra Prabhu, shall I repeat your question?
Hello?
Shall I repeat your question?
Yeah, please repeat, Prabhuji.
Yeah, you are telling that, see, nowadays divorce is happening and second time they are marrying. Why are they marrying like that? Right?
Why they are marrying and why it is done in a Shastric way. By the Shastras they are doing. The marriage is done with the... See,
yes.
First time married, divorce, they remove the tali, right? They remove the Mangal Sutra, right? Second time again, they are getting married by the Brahmanas in front of people. They again put one more Mangal Sutra. Why that is happening? That is what is my question.
It is very wrong, Prabhu. It is very wrong. It should not happen, actually. It should not happen. Many things are happening in Kali Yuga which is wrong, no? This is one among them. Abortion is happening. People are killing the child in the womb. They want to enjoy sex life, but they do not want to take the responsibility of bearing children. So they are killing child in the womb, or they are using so many artificial contraceptive methods so that, there is no conception. That is also sinful. Similarly, divorce is also happening. See, once you are married, that's all. Until that person leaves his body or you leave your body, you have to stay together. If there is a quarrel, stay separately for some time. You go to your parents' house and stay for some time, and the quarrel will reduce in some time, and then you again stay together. That is the maximum thing which can be done. This divorce concept is totally unauthorized by Vedic scriptures. And nowadays they are doing it, they are giving a divorce, and again, they are removing the Mangal Sutra. Just because you have given a divorce does not mean that, your relationship with your husband is over. What is divorce, Prabhu? Divorce means just signing on some papers. You have taken vows in front of the deities. You have taken vows in front of the fire, in front of the devatas, in front of the brahmanas. You have taken a vow. But there is no importance given to these things nowadays. So what they think, they do divorce and again they get married in a Shastric way. Yeah, Brahmanas are also performing because they are only after money anyway. We will see in Ambarish Maharaj section. Actually, Ambarish Maharaj took guidance not from just ritualistic Brahmanas. Ambarish Maharaj took guidance from very pure Brahmanas, those who are actually pursuing the path of pure devotional service. So, those who are pursuing the path of pure devotional service, they will never recommend divorce. But today's Brahmanas, whoever is performing the marriage, they are just performing the ritual so that they get some money. Right? They do not condemn. If that second marriage also gets divorced and the third marriage is going to take place, still they will go and do that marriage also. They will not give any advice to you that divorce is wrong. Because they are only performer of the ritual, that's all. Did you get me? Does this answer your question?
That means the Brahmana is also doing wrong thing. The person is also doing wrong thing. Everybody is wrong.
See, Prabhu, the Brahmanas are just, whoever calls them, they will go, Prabhu. In fact, actually, they should not go.
Correct.
Actually, they should not do that. They should not do that, actually. Even it is very, very wrong. Already a boy or a girl who is married and the spouse is still living, how can she marry another boy or girl? It is totally condemned in the Shastras. But if they are doing it, they are doing it. It's wrong only. What to do?
Correct.
They are actually not supposed to perform.
Okay, Prabhuji.
As a business, they may do it. But actually, whoever is actually wanting to do like that, going for a divorce and again marry, it is very sinful actually. Of course, the situation in Kali Yuga is very, very complicated. So here in this class, we are discussing only principles. We are not discussing any particular, personal example of Kali Yuga. It's very complicated. Every personal example is complicated, but we are only discussing principles in this class. In principle, it is very wrong. See, Prabhu, particularly when you have children, how difficult it is when husband and wife go for divorce, right? Even otherwise, it is sinful. But just imagine,
correct,
even from a very practical point of view, you have children and you are going for a divorce. What will happen to those children? You will get married to one man. He will get married to another woman. You have children. You cannot stay without getting married, and you may have, you may beget children from your second wife, and this person also may beget children from second husband. What is going to happen to these children? Right?
Correct.
Every way, if you see, divorce is actually wrong. And what should be done? We must take responsibility to make our marriage work. Elders should take responsibility. Nowadays, elders are also instigating. They say, you go for divorce, we will see what he will do. Instead of making the marriage work, if the husband and wife, if the boy and girl are facing some difficulties, elders should come together to help them in whatever way possible. Instead of that, they nowadays, instigate. Nuvem takwa? Nu sampadinchatleda? That is what they say, right? Are you not earning? Only is he earning? Are you not earning? Are you not educated? Why should you be submissive to him? This is what they say, right? Modern parents.
Correct.
Already they are fighting, husband and wife. And these people even more instigate that fight. So they encourage these things. I have seen many divorce cases, Prabhu. At least 2-3 cases I have seen. How much everybody is affected. Even the boy and girl, they are also very much affected. It is much better to tolerate one another's weakness and stay together than, to go for a divorce. You know that? Take some time, stay separately, take help of relatives, take help of parents. Somehow make the marriage work. Because in this life, it is by the will of providence you get your husband or wife. You have no control over it. See, Sukanyā, we see in this example, she accepted Cyavana Muni as her husband. Was he actually fit to be her husband, Prabhu? He was not fit to be her husband. But still, she accepted it as Lord's will for her. And she did her duty very nicely. So therefore, one must be trained to do that. One must be trained to understand what is God's will. For that, one must be trained to understand what is God. Is there any part, is there any syllabus in our modern education which is actually teaching us who is God? Nobody is trained properly. Therefore, all these things are happening. I mean, it's a very long discussion. We can keep talking for hours together. But anyway, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your nice question.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhuji.
We'll stop for the day. Okay, we'll resume the next section tomorrow. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.